Hello and welcome to the Jess plus Scott plus You show. I'm Jess in the Jess plus Scott plus You show, and I am so excited to be with you tonight. Apologize for the late start. My little man had a slip, and we needed to take care of a bump, and then we were able to start. So thank you for your patience, Scott. Thank you for your patience on that too. And I wanted to start tonight because we're talking about delivering on the potential of Hangouts on Air, and timely as it is, my tea bags, my Yogi tea bags, have little messages on them. And the one that I got today says, uplift everybody and uplift yourself. And I thought that was very powerful and a very great way to start when we're talking about what the potential of a hangout can bring, because there are so many pieces, and you and Scott and me, we're all the people that are part of that video. So, Scott, how are you doing tonight? Oh, try again.
Oh my gosh, how's it now?
Perfect.
What would I do without you? Everything was going great up until then. Actually, it's terrific.
It is true.
I think it was terrific that you also took some time away to comfort Carter, because that can be pretty traumatic, taking a little bit of a tumble. So.
Especially when you're trying to learn a new skill, maybe like a hangout on air. In his case, balancing, but all important skills in life.
Boy, I hope that we all continue to learn until the end. When you stop learning, then why continue? That's what I always say.
That's what I always say too.
Speaking of beginning, should I just go ahead and see if this will work? You know, I shouldn't get overconfident about these. The very second you get overconfident, but I think it might work this time. Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Okay, that's it. Back to you.
Back to me. Tonight, when we should share with everybody the way that this show developed, and it took us a really long time. Okay, our invite and our everything went out on Sunday night, and that was because we had this grand idea, and the more we talked about this idea, the bigger it got. And then we realized we had too much for one hangout, and we had it for a whole series. And so we decided to break out one little piece and talk about that in preparation for some stuff you will be seeing in 2014. So just know that tonight's show came from an amazingly large topic that we're going to break down one bite at a time. Would you say anything else about that, Scott?
Boy,
I'm trying not to give anything away.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't going to give too much away. It was going to be a little bit of a teaser. I woke up. I was a little worried about this hangout on air because I wasn't quite sure what we were going to be saying. So I woke up one morning, and all of the pieces of the puzzle came together as a whole, and I thought, this is really great. So I created a spreadsheet, and I went from beginning to middle to end, and could drill down. And the further I drilled down, the richer the gold became. It wasn't a nugget. It was a gold strike. And I'm all excited, and I present this to Jess during one of our pre-production meetings, and I could just see her get silent and put on her very best people skills, and and the result is that we've got a great show tonight that isn't trying to bite off too much, and we have something that's very exciting to start off the new year, I think.
I think so too.
And it's a follow-up to tonight's program.
And next week's program.
And next week's program.
Yeah.
I didn't give away too much now, did I?
Didn't give away too much. Plus, I think when people see that, our work and our shows up to this point have culminated this idea of yours, Scott. And the more we talked about it, and the more we dove in, and the more we explored, the more we found there was. And so we've got to make it bite-sized somehow. It's unfortunate that we don't have more than an hour sometimes.
Well, I'm glad that we don't have more than an hour, because it's too much to bite off in one meal. We'd be too satiated. But I'm just gonna say this and not live to regret it. We're gonna own this territory, Jess, aren't we?
Wow. Yes,
Okay.
we are. And so with that, let's talk about a little bit about video. Video, right? It's an interactive media, and I can't even read my notes, Scott. Do you know what the last part was? Oh, depth of connection. There we go. And you were actually just illustrating that with what you were saying, with every single step that we were taking and every single conversation that we were having. Getting us to where we were going, it was pretty amazing that we had such great conversation. I tell you what, Scott keeps telling us we should video our pre-production meetings and actually have like a have a Just Plus Scott Plus You mini show or something, because of how amazing and fun those conversations are, just as when we're here with you on Tuesdays.
You know, someone ought to provide a service out there that would go in and videotape green rooms and maybe pre-production meetings if other people have pre-production meetings. And then it would be such that people would feel at ease to say whatever they want to because they know it's not being broadcast live, and they also know that nothing would go out live if it wasn't already approved by them. But then whoever captures that as as the fly on the wall could edit together some just amazing things. You and I have been in some fantastic green rooms, and other people have said, oh, well, the conversation really takes off at thus and such a time. That is the power of the interpersonal relationship that Hangouts have. And I would say that when we toss out the verbiage, videos, there's a lot of, semantically deep or a lot of really communicative video out there, but these hangouts, which are people-to-people communications, and they're live, which gives a little extra juice to them, I think have, in some ways, far more gravitas and import for what they do for our intended audience than the pre-produced package stuff that is on network television or on mainstream television, because a lot of that is produced through committee, and a lot of that has to go through so many filters, and you lose something. It's sort of like processed food. We're like organic communications with Hangouts.
And yes, we are. And I actually wonder if, because that whole process by committee, it is not necessarily a bad thing to promote brand integrity, but to find that special balance, because the people that make up the team that works for whatever the brand is, whether it's a small brand, a medium-sized brand, or a ginormous international brand, what that, the people interpersonal skills are really what's there, and being able to have that connection helps the person, helps the team, helps the department, helps the whole business. And so I completely agree with you on what the people side of things bring to video, even though sometimes there might not, there's a lot of information that can be shared, and there might be some information that can't be shared from a secret sauce type of perspective. When, and how do you know? We watch a lot of Hangouts, and we participate in Hangouts on a regular basis in addition to our own show. And people don't have to do video. There are still so many awesome ways out there that there are ways to market and ways to connect with people. So you don't have to do it. But I think there's a distinct opportunity that's being missed when video is not incorporated as one of the pieces of a digital marketing strategy. And Scott mentioned something about extra juice, and I don't feel like I'm an expert on that. I feel like when any medium is used well and optimized and thought through, it can provide powerful juice. So Scott, I would love for you to expand on that and tell us what is special about video and what gives it a little bit of extra juice, if you would share that with us.
Well, all right. I think the very first thing to say, though, is that the underlying quality and caliber of the information is paramount. And there is nothing that will ever replace, in my opinion, the written word. Even if you write it ahead of time and you make a script and then you get it in your mind and you throw it away. Not that everyone has to be a stellar writer, but man, uh, I don't want anyone to get the idea that writing is not a core competency, and it leads to clear thinking, clear communications. It helps organize the mind. It has helped Homo sapiens evolve out of the jungle or out of the woods or out of the forest or wherever into the society and the culture that we're in right now. And the video is an extra quiver in the whatever the quivers are contained in, an arrow in the quiver, so that you can really hit the mark. And so it's an opportunity now that I think, especially small businesses and entrepreneurs and others, can avail themselves nowadays that they couldn't as recently as 10 or 15, 20 years ago. Because at one time, the ticket was money. If you had the money to buy the real estate, to be able to, not to buy, to rent it from someone who owned the real estate, then your voice could be heard. And people would ascribe to you authority, because if you're advertising on TV or if you had an ad space in the paper, you were one of just a select few who could do that. And if you were in the newspaper or on TV or on the radio, then surely there must be something to what you had to say. And things evolved. People started demanding higher production values in terms of the commercials, and things have been slipping away. And now there's been a tipping point where community newspapers are really struggling, and print magazines are really struggling, and the networks are trying to figure out how to readjust their business model, because the authority that they had and the clout that they had is dissipating. And where is it going? It's going to neighbor talking to neighbor, and one of the ways that they get to communicate back and forth is through Google Hangouts.
Have you ever read the book, The Millionaire Next Door?
No. Tell me about
it. What you were talking about made me think of one theme of that, and that is when, still today, doesn't matter throughout time, wherever the marketing dollars are, wherever the money is being spent, what it comes down to is that we still rely on the people that we know, and we trust their information more than we trust other people's information. So now, with the ability for us to have Hangouts on air, we have the ability to have conversations online in a digital community, connecting to more people in less time in a very authentic way, and being able to be that person that they like and trust. And then the content that is produced, that's actually part of the potential of a Hangout, is to just start a Hangout with no following and no conversations going on and nothing to show for your expertise or the place that you want to, the space that you would like to take up in the community that you are participating in. The Hangouts might not be as powerful for you, at least not at the beginning. I think that there is a very important base that must occur for that to, for Hangouts to actually carry the weight that you want them to carry and have the longevity. I mean, one of the things about Hangouts, like what we're doing, they're live now. Some of you guys are not watching tonight. We're an evening show, so a lot of you are not working, or it's family time, or you're sleeping. And so you respond yes or maybe to our invite, and you watch the replay on Wednesday or Thursday and stop by and share your thoughts about what you thought on the show. And one of the things I like about that is that we take the potential of this Hangout to have a conversation beyond just when we're live.
One of the real pleasures of this is that we get to meet people, and we start to feel like we get to know them. And I think this would be a terrific time to
Read my mind.
to introduce our audience, if they're not familiar with him already, with a person I've really grown to like and respect a lot, because I've seen very closely, because I've done the Scott treatment on about 5 or 6 of his hangouts, and you really get to know someone when you pay close attention to hangouts. Eric Unge from the Stone Temple Consulting, he's not that old in terms of Google age. I think it was this last summer that he started very seriously thinking about doing hangouts on air, talking about this rapidly changing environment, about SEO and things that he is an expert in, and he is able to bring in those people he will credential. So I can relax and listen to, for example, Brian Clark from Copyblogger. And when I first started with social media a long time ago, I ran across this person. I thought, wow, this is a really terrific person. He's a real, you know, unattainable kind of person because he's so big. There's no way that I could possibly make contact with him. But I'll bet you that he's watched replays of this program. So I'm jabbering. Let's go on to this. And one of the reasons why I especially like this clip is that they're really talking about the underlying pinning of any of the communications that we have in social media. And well, you'll see for yourself. How about that? So here we go. Oh no! Hang on, I've got to go back. What did I say? Get overconfident.
Well,
Yeah.
I couldn't find a nice way to get you to read between the lines while you were talking. You were on such a roll there. Okay, you ready?
Well, I think so. Let's find out if this will work.
Okay.
Everybody talks about content, but doesn't skillful use of the language also count big time?
Yeah, that's called writing. And contrary to popular belief, everyone seems to think they can write, but that's not true. We know that. The internet has established that for sure. You know, last year I closed out the year and said 2013 was year of the online writer. Kind of for, you know, seeing that all of this from a Google perspective, content marketing perspective, just in general, the need for really good writers the demand is going to increase, which is a big change from the way writers used to be treated. So that means they become more in demand, they become more expensive, whatever. But the key being, there's no real alternative to that. The skillful use of language, absolutely. Writing applies to video because you generally will do a script, unless you're doing something like what Eric and I are doing right now. You know, even with a podcast, a good outline is where you get started. Scripts, written content, white papers, all of this stuff, one way or another, needs a good writer behind it. So if you're not that person, then you get to act more like a producer. Look at how Hollywood works. There are people who are business people who perhaps bring the funding, or they bring the product. In the case of content marketing, they have the business, and then they hire the writers in order to produce the quality content they need. Whatever it takes is what needs to be done, I think. And I think we're at this point where that's a reality that, Eric, you've been talking a lot about, and we've discussed building teams and how people are moving beyond the why of content marketing, and they're like, okay, how do I get this done? I'm not a writer. I need to hire some, or I'm not a video person, whatever. You got to hire the talent. You're a producer, right?
It's actually bad English, but I like this short, simple phrases. Be an expert or go home. And to expand on that, okay, you don't necessarily have to be the expert yourself, but your business needs one.
Or you could be the expert, but you don't have to be the writer.
Exactly, which you introduce. So to expand on Scott's question, if you aren't the one that has that ability to have skillful use of language, but you are in fact an expert, then you can work with somebody who can understand what it is you're trying to communicate. They can help you with the actual writing elements, and then you can get your voice and what you're trying to communicate into it by interacting with them.
Okay.
You know, that actually brought up so many points. And we like to think we can do it all, or we like to think we can create content that stands out above the noise all on our own. And it's pretty amazing. Even when we work by ourselves, there is an element of teamwork that can make us shine brighter, because they clear the way a little bit, and other people will see smudges that we didn't see as we were building our work. And I think that that's a really big piece of what they were talking about.
Yeah. A big takeaway for me was that, and here I'm pontificating, be a good writer. And we can't all be a good writer necessarily, but what we can all do is we can all prepare. And in this case, in the context of what we're talking about, there can be thorough and careful and sincere pre-production planning. And you do whatever it takes. So if it takes a village, it takes a team to put things together. And I think people will look back on these Hangouts on Air 5 or 7 years from now, which is an eternity, and they'll say, I remember when we would get on and we would be the technical director and the host and the publicity person and this. We did it all by ourselves, and look at the people that now. I mean, it's, because years from now, I'm sure that things will settle out and people will specialize in different areas. Sure, people will be able to do some things all on their own, but a lot of it will be teamwork. And that will be allowing for a higher caliber, or a more easily attained high caliber of quality.
Well, and going back to the message, we think no matter what we're writing, and whether it's for us, for our business, for our team, or somebody else is doing the writing for us, without multiple heads, how can we look at it from every view? Because as much as we try to look at something through the view of our audience and make sure we're connecting with our audience, sometimes we're still missing something obvious, and having a second set of eyes to even help us build that message is huge, because it comes back down to you need writing for everything. One thing they didn't say was public speaking. So, in that, and I believe that there are catchphrases and there are titles and there are things that can be incorporated that using the value of a team would bring to the table there. So that's something that when we're thinking about the potential, that planning, what you were talking about, Scott, is really huge.
Well, you've also brought up something else that's a little near and dear to my heart. We don't have to go into a lot of detail about it, but do you know who the most valuable team member a person can have on their team?
I'm not even going to guess. You just tell us.
Okay. And it doesn't have to be this person, but generally it's their spouse. And the reason for that is that a spouse can speak truth to power. And so if you're lucky enough to have someone who is able to do that, and your relationship with them is such that they will tell you that you've got bad breath and you should brush your teeth or whatever, that
makes a good point. By the way, I think a business partner, especially when you're working with other people, I think that collaborations would be to have a successful collaboration, people need to be able to speak truth to power. To have business relationships where you're on the same team and you're trying to figure out where you're going together, you have to have that type of relationship. I mean, if you can't tell somebody they look like if you can't tell somebody their flies unzipped, would you really want to be walking into a really important board meeting with them? Yeah. I mean, so you got to have people that have your back and will be honest and truthful and speak from the heart with integrity and care surrounding you.
Yep. As always, you bring it back to earth. And
but the good news is we sit down on these things, so
Yeah. Actually, I'm not listening to you. I'm thinking ahead. What's next on our? Sorry about that.
Oh, Scott, that was awesome. Sounds
So
good. Why don't we just jump right into the next video clip
I'll tell
then?
you what we're going to do. This is going to be a real treat, and I would hope that someday the host of this great program would feel more comfortable showing himself when he's talking. But Jess was on a show with Small Biz David the other day, and she had something to say about storytelling, and we think that it's probably worthy of sharing with you tonight. So here we go. Oh, no. No, no, no.
We're gonna do that one next. I'm gonna unblue box and
Yeah.
yeah, and
Wow.
that's true because all right. So I'm gonna set up based off of that. Well, and that is when you have people and you have video, there are three things that really come out of that make Hangouts memorable, that make them useful over time, and that makes them, for using a phrase that we all may know, is evergreen. And we were talking a little bit about content and the power of writing and how important that is. And the next step is adding value, and how do you add value? And part of being able to tell the story and have great content, part of having great content is being able to tell that story. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're also going to play back-to-back another video from Randy
Bowden.
And one of the interviews that he did that also relates to that, and then we'll talk more. So there's going to be a few minutes of videos, but there will be two before we come back and talk.
So one of them is storytelling, what you say to people, and the other is how valuable it is to create the network so that you have someone to talk to and communicate back. They can communicate back. So I don't think my confidence is in the right place now. Let's see if this will work.
The key point that you said is you have to tell a story. People want to tell stories, so you either do it in the form of the blog, the written word, or I don't write much. That's behind me. I've written. I've been a publisher. I've been an editor. I've done a book. I don't like to write, but I love to do video. And video is a great way to tell a story. I mean, you and I are telling a story today, and if we try to sit down and write what we're doing, it would take us a month to do what we're going to be doing in 30 minutes.
Exactly.
And so that's a big change. Number one, that whole video thing. But the other really big challenge, and this is where I don't know where we're going to go with it, is mobile. How we have to think.
And our websites in general as businesses are not keeping up. It's one of the last things we think about. We have a marketing team and we have a technology team, and that the silos between the two, and then some companies, marketing is in, or social media is in marketing, or digital marketing, or whatever you want to call it, internet marketing. So many things fall under that marketing category. Sometimes they each have their own space. And there still is a lot of gaps between having them all work together.
What are the realities of power and influence on the web?
Let's be very simple about this. Why am I here today? Is it because I teach at Rutgers? Is it because I'm a good father? Is it because I do work in my community? The reason I'm here today is because I blog. I've created a good audience on Twitter. I've exerted my power. I've taken advantage of my opportunity, and I've worked really, really hard. But it's created an opportunity for me that never could have happened 5 years ago. You and I would never be doing this. Even if Google Plus existed 5 years ago, you and I would never have this opportunity. You came to know me through my content, and now you are giving me an opportunity to express my ideas, to express my opinions, to make my content ignite. You're helping me do that today. And the only thing, the core, the heart of that source of influence is content. And so businesses need to understand that a legitimate source of power today is content that moves. And most businesses understand the content part. They're saying, well, we need to have a blog. We need to have a Facebook page. But what they don't get is the ignition. They don't understand. We need to systematically, continuously build a relevant audience who is interested in us, who will have some propensity to move our content and share our content. The content doesn't work unless it ignites, unless it becomes conversational. That's how you create your power and influence. And the research shows, the academic research shows, that people generally don't share content. It's hard to get people to push that tweet button. It's hard to get people to push that Facebook like. They generally don't do it. So you've got to work on the network strategy, not just the content strategy. You need to have a network strategy too. You've got to have them together. Every social media success story, every case study, you can see that. You can see there's a content strategy and there's a network strategy. There are very, very rare cases that you can ignite content without a network strategy. One example would be Rebecca Black, the teenager who did this singing the Friday song a few years ago. She had no network, but it went viral. In business, likely that's not going to happen. So you need to work on the network strategy too.
I like that music on his little piece there. And I guess the two pieces were whether it's this. Sometimes when you're networking, especially when we are working as for another person, as part of a team, whether we're leading that team or a team member, whether we are in a particular department or part of a cross-functional team in an organization, there are so many different ways that could come together. Sometimes that networking that was just talked about has to occur inside our organization in addition to outside of our organization. And the reason for that is because of when you start thinking about all of the marketing messages, and if a company does have silos, which most do to some degree, they might be getting shorter. But in essence, everybody still has a role, and when there's not a clear starting or going point for things, that can be a little confusing and hard to figure out and navigate sometimes. But when you've got a story and you've got a whole bunch of people looking at that story, and then you for things to get done, there has to be buy-in. That's the exact same thing as externally, where when you're making great content, when people share and there's going to be something that actually allows people to say, yes, I would like to make a comment, or yes, I want to share this with my friends or my networks or my circles, that's their buy-in, if you will. And we can't forget that there are two sides to making great content and having something that is valuable that will encourage engagement.
So, it occurred that well stated. The thing that popped into my head listening to you and these is that the element that is the glue or the thing that ties everything together is trust. Whether it's that you trust your internal employees so that they can express themselves, or you trust them to express properly what it is that your company's all about, or you trust your customers and they trust you. And the currency of trust in this case is content. And it can be entertainment. There's no reason why it couldn't be entertainment. However, most companies are not in the business of entertaining exactly, and that's really hard to do. And then it's also hard to just be entertaining and answer the so what question. So then if you need to answer the so what question, then it's well, I'm an expert in something, and I have something that I can share with you, and I'll share what you want to know so that you can get to know me, and then when you need my services or you need my product, you can go down the block someplace and buy from them. But why should you do that? Because you already know me and you trust me.
I love it. We need a song about trust like we have for respect. We just need to be able to rattle it off.
All right. Well, that's a challenge for one of our viewers.
I think that would be fabulous. And actually, you know, one of the things that we asked in the description of tonight's show was, what about a hangout makes you stay around and watch? And that was a question that we would like to put out there to everybody that's watching us tonight, that will be watching us in a replay later this week, because as you are watching a hangout, what are the things, think about that a little bit, and what are the things that make you want to comment? Do you know, are you doing it to support the person whose hangout it is? Are you are you learning about the topic and you have something to share? Are you working on your own cred and participating and restating things and adding your own opinion in there so other people can notice who you are? Are you framing questions to add to the dialogue because you're acting as part of the community? And those are just a few. I could probably sit here, and Scott could sit here, and we could have all of you guys watch and sit here and come up with other things. But knowing yourself, why do you do what you do? And what is the purpose of that? Also will help on the external with providing content that is valuable, that is engagement. Because if you know yourself and you know your message, then it's easy to do a shift. Like, I like to think of this as a kaleidoscope. When people are working with me and we're sitting down and we're like, I have different target audiences, but how do I know which one I'm talking to when I want to talk to every single one all the time, because that maximizes my time? Well, sure, it can maximize your time, but you lose impact that way. So what I look at it is, I'm the center of the kaleidoscope, and I'm all the colorful pieces inside, and as I turn it, the picture changes, and I'm looking at one target audience, and I'm working to connect with them and thinking about things in a particular way just for them. And then I'm going to shift it again the next time I'm writing or creating a video or working on a script or putting together a presentation where I'm going to be speaking or writing my social media posts and looking for other content. And I'm going to look and give the focus to one of my other target audiences. And then I'm going to shift it again as many times as I need. So every time I do it, it's still me in the center. It's still my message. It's still something I believe that my team, my company, whomever, so that's who I is in this case, not me, but all of us, where we're trying to go and what we're trying to do, and remembering that every single picture is beautiful and every single lens is beautiful, and we can say the same thing in different ways that supports how each group that we're trying to connect to wants to hear and it will be able to receive. More importantly, not only wants to hear, but will be able to be in a place to receive that message.
So instead of trying to be all things to all people, I don't think people really like that. What they really like is when you make eye contact with them and say, all right, you've got my undivided attention, and I'm going to pay attention to what I'm going to listen. And after I've listened, I'm going to respond, and I'm going to respond to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Exactly.
And then later, turn the kaleidoscope. I've got the same underlying message, but there are components of the message that you didn't care about, but you do. So right. Now I get to talk to you for a while, and because I've listened and I've watched, you and I can make contact.
And that's actually a really good exercise, whether you're doing this all yourself, whether you're leading a team of people, whether you're working for somebody else and you're trying to do this. We're all trying to streamline, and so to be very specific like that, this is an exercise you can do. Who is at the center? So if you're part of a team, it's going to be the company or a product or something like that. And then you have to know each target audience. And so you're going to draw this big circle, and you're going to put the message in the center, and then you're going to slice it up like you would slice pies. And they can be equal slices, or they don't have to be equal slices. Maybe you want the width of your slice to be the size of your target market relative to the whole, because this is actually something that you could take away and use. And then you actually sit down and you do the kaleidoscope exercise, and that's what I call it.
Oh.
We're going to do a kaleidoscope exercise, and we've got this in the center, and what does it look like as you go from the center and get outward closer and closer and closer to each individual in that target audience. And so depending on where you're at, what you're trying to do, where they are in the sales process, you know what that message should be to have that eye contact, to have that radio voice, whatever the case may be, when you are having that communication.
Yeah. Oh, that's so much fun. We were kind of talking about the same thing a few weeks ago with personas, weren't we? And I know you're a big fan of personas. Yeah. So we're all over the map kind of tonight because we're saying content and we're saying good writing and all of the other sorts of things. But we built it as Hangouts on Air and video. And one of the reasons why we did that is not to diss any of the other modes of communications, and it's communications that we're talking about, but video is one of the most powerful communication tools that is out there. And Hangouts on Air are one of the most accessible ways of creating video for real people that I know of. And you can have a terrific impact on the delivery of your message. I think I saw something the other day that said that half of the internet traffic was YouTube and Netflix. I mean, people love to sit back and have information and entertainment delivered in this format, and as is evidenced by that. And it just happens that we just happen to have something. Steve Washer and Ronnie Bincer had
Before
a great
you continue, I'm going to interrupt because you
Okay.
said we were all over the map. We are not all over the map. We planned this. We have an outline, and we know what our message is. And how cool is it that we take little turns in the road, but always bring it back to our overall message, because we know ourselves and what we're trying to do. We know the content we're trying to create. And we know you guys that are watching us and what you would like to hear from us. At least we think. So if we're off in any way, that's one of the things that you should tell us.
I was just trying to create a transition to this segment. I was thinking, how can I do it gracefully?
Oh, that's too funny. That's very funny. But anyway, so this next clip is actually it is a very good piece. Okay, keep going to introduce the clip.
And thank you, because I sometimes get in the trap of listening to the sound of my own voice. But suffice it to say that all over the map or not, we try hard to prepare and to be really focused for these Hangouts on Air, because we really value our viewers and we want to provide the very best content that you can take away. So I scatter things around, and then Jess brings it back home and hits the ball out of the park. And having said that, let's see what actually. Okay, I'll shut up and we'll just do this. Okay, hang on. Here we go. Sorry.
We had a certain number of people that could see our videos on YouTube, but now that Google Plus has been added, what is the, what happens to our videos now?
Okay, impact number-wise, the most recent numbers that were published from Google Plus to say how many people are active on a regular basis, I believe was 340 million. Some number that's really hard to grasp. Because if you think, let's just back it down to 300 million. That's every single man, woman, and child in the United States. That's a lot of people. And even if there's some overlap, meaning a percentage of those people that are active on Google Plus were also active on YouTube, let's drop it way down and say only 100 million new people are now available for you to reach. But that's 100 million. I'd even take 1 million. One. So the idea that this integration has allowed your video activity to now be visible to potentially 1 million more people, and I'm bringing it down from 300 million. So I'm being very conservative. but you now have 1 million more people that could potentially see your content. This increases your reach dramatically.
And I also want to say something too about the numbers. Now, YouTube, generally speaking, it's about 1 trillion views, but out of those, 30% at least are, totally business related, which is relevant to our audience.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take 30% of 1 trillion, that's 300 billion views. Now, if we add the Google Plus views, the thing about Google Plus is a lot of it is really business related anyway. So I imagine that a lot of those views are potentially more than 30%.
I would agree.
Right.
I have a huge impact connection in the business realm because I focus on these things that we're doing right now, the Hangouts. Hangouts on Air are a phenomenal broadcasting environment, and business loves it.
Right, right.
And before we continue, I want to do a shout out to Ray Hiltz. If you're not part of his community, take a look at the Google Plus community that Ray Hiltz hosts. Is that the name of it, Scott?
Ray Hiltz,
I just call it the Google Plus community, but I think its name is.
It's Google Tips, I think, and he calls us the Lunch Bunch, who meet at 12 noon Montreal time. Every Tuesday, and you can see it live. You can even join the community and participate in the film strip if you like. It has helped so many people introduce them to Google Plus and to Hangouts on Air, and a lot of people have said that it was because of Ray Hiltz and his efforts that they were able to take root in this new medium. So good for you. Go ahead.
That's right. And Ronnie will be his special guest next week with the panel that will participate. So if you like what he says, if you are interested in learning more about Google and everything on a regular basis, the Tips and Topic group is fabulous. The Lunch Bunch is awesome. And how cool is it then that Ronnie Benster will be there too?
And between the two of them and the panel, it's going to rock. It's going to be on a Richter, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to predict that it's going to be a 10. That's all. It cannot help but be the highlight of the year to wrap up the year. So what does that mean?
Even though so tune in there, but you're tuned in right here. So how does Ronnie help us talk about delivering on the potential of Hangouts? And tell us what you took away from that, Scott.
What I think the underlying theme leading up to that segment was that YouTube and Google Plus have essentially married together. And whereas I think that YouTube had been a little crippled prior to some changes because there was just a race to the bottom, to be honest with you. People gave up on commenting and on engagement within the YouTube environment because it was so worthless. And now it's beginning to turn around. YouTube is now utilizing the comment system that is state-of-the-art, the most recently created one, and one in which the best questions and the best comments will kind of surface. It's a race to the top. So that was half of what I took away. The other half is that you're able to have a huge impact by the proper, here's the tool, learn to use it, and you too can have a huge impact. The opportunity is there and this is a theme throughout tonight. A few years ago, not so much now. Now and going into the future, a lot of opportunity to make an impact.
And so when it comes right down to it, what we started out with was video is a medium that we can connect one to many and still have a one-to-one type of conversation, whereas a commercial or public access TV or radio, it's always a one-to-many, and you can have a crafted message that makes people feel like you're talking to them, but there's really no way to talk back. Whereas in the Hangout, you have the opportunity to participate on the event page. you ever participate on the YouTube channel or any of the other various places that this, the events may be promoted. And then to be able to take that after the fact and say, okay, I planned. I say I, meaning whomever is creating the Hangout. The planning was done. The path was set. The work culminated in an event in a live Hangout. And then there's a whole other opportunity after the fact of how you use that as part of your overall content strategy and the digital footprint and the communities that you wish to be involved with. So I think that there's a lot of potential with Hangouts. And where was the quote? Did I write that down somewhere? It was so cool. I want to use it. You're going to see it somewhere. It was something like limited or unlimited dreams or something along those lines where, get creative and figure out how to use this to support your message and reach your audience, because there are a lot of different ways to use video as a medium, specifically for Hangouts on Air, but also video in general after the fact of having a Hangout, or how it might relate to other things. So that's my closing thought is we're only limited by our own thoughts of what we can do with the technology. And if we feel limited, there are a whole bunch of us that will help you get an idea. All you have to do is ask.
That's right. That's right. My closing comments are, it occurs to me during this evening's program, and some of the things that you've said, Jess, is that the closest thing to what we're experiencing nowadays, I think, might have been talk radio, because local talk radio, where there would be a host, and the host would open up a discussion and then invite people to call in, and they could talk. But and it was, it's gotten a bad rap because it was polarized and whatnot, but at its best, local talk radio was something that was community, and it was great communications. It made the community what it was. And now, what we're experiencing now is a little bit of that on steroids, because it's not confined to the local community. It is global, and it's also video rather than just audio. It's also view on demand, so people who are not watching this because it's too late on the East Coast or in Europe can view this program or any Hangout on demand. Plus, when you utilize things like the event page, there is cross-pollination of ideas, peer-to-peer, and people can ask up to the people who are in the film strip, and we can communicate, see something, and close the circle by answering questions or acknowledging comments. I mean, it is just such a beautiful ecosystem for communications, and it's a journey of discovery that we're on as well, because it's never really quite been like this before. It's very exciting, and you can be you can be part of it. You are a part of it. So we're very excited to be part of your journey and our journey to the future. How about that for an inspirational speech?
That was awesome. And remember, uplift everybody and uplift yourself. So start with you, know your audience, and we will see you next week for another show. Have a great one.
Bye now.